Hello, everyone. As we all know already, a Black Hawk and an American airline plane crashed into each other at the Reagan Airport in DC Wednesday night around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. No one survived. Today is now Friday, January 31st, and rescuers were able to retrieve over 40 bodies from the Potomac River. We have also found out that over a dozen figure skaters and their families died in the crash. As the names of victims get released to the public, this tragedy becomes more and more heartbreaking. And I want to say, may they all rest in peace. I wanted to start this post with the victims in mind. The next thing I want to say, and this is going to take up most of the post. Um, Over the past 48 hours, there has been a lot of blaming going around. After the accident, people hopped on social media and blamed Trump and his policies over over the past week as to why the plane crashed. Then there was a backlash. And then Trump attended a press conference yesterday and he blamed the plane crash on Obama and Biden and the DEI programs. So I wanted to share my perspective on the plane crash that I have not heard yet or seen on social media or in the news within the past 48 hours. When you are on a plane, your life is in the hands of the pilot, period. When you are on a plane, you are not thinking about the FAA nor the politicians. None of them. You get on a flight, you watch the video of what you do in case of an emergency, how to put on your oxygen mask, and where to find the emergency brochure. In the 40 years I have traveled by plane, I have had one female white pilot. And I am not talking about co-pilots because the co-pilots usually don't make public announcements on the plane. I am talking about the pilot in charge. One white female pilot. I have had two male pilots who look multiracial or Middle Eastern. All of the other pilots over the past 40 plus years were all white men. Thank you to all the pilots who have made traveling for me safe over the past 4 decades. When I get on a plane, I look inside the cockpit because the door to the cockpit is usually wide open. And then when I leave the plane, most of the time, the pilot and the co-pilot stand there and say goodbye to the passengers. If I was to put a number on it, 95% of pilots and co-pilots I have met while traveling by plane are white men. The pilot on the Black Hawk was a white man. The pilot and co-pilot on the American airline plane were white men. There were two flight attendants. One of them was a black woman. However, black flight attendants do not fly the plane. I never flew on a plane piloted by a black man or a black woman. Never. Now, my mother's side of the family is from Jamaica. So when I was a kid, I visited my great-grandmother. The airport closest to my great-grandmother's house is in Montego Bay. And I either traveled with my mother or my grandmother. We always traveled via Air Jamaica. Now, more than 75% of Jamaicans are of sub-Saharan African descent. In other words, black like me. Even when I traveled on an Air Jamaica plane, I never had a pilot nor a co-pilot that was black and or female. Since then, Air Jamaica no longer exists. They went out of business 10 years ago. But I am saying this to prove the point that it doesn't matter if I am traveling within the United States or if I am traveling internationally. Most of the time, the pilot on my flight is a white man. Now, I have a part 2 to this post where I will focus on air traffic control and my opinions on that. But guys, to put this accident in perspective, the US has more airports than any other country in the world. And since I live in New York City, there was an article that came out a few years back where I found out that airplanes land and take off once per minute at JFK Airport. Once per minute. And this is just one airport. There have been times where the plane I am on left the gate and we're sitting on the runway waiting to take off because the plane is literally on line. Yes, there is a group of planes lined up, one behind the other, waiting to take off. I don't remember that happening when I was a teenager. It's like the traffic I see on the road when I'm in a car, I now see the same thing on the runway. So don't misunderstand me. I did not know anyone who died in the plane crash, and I am still heartbroken that it happened. This is a major tragedy. But I am bringing up how rare a plane crash is because Trump is lying. If most pilots are white men, if the pilots on the Black Hawk and the plane are all white men, DEI has nothing to do with the accident.